My name is Liam O'Connell. I'm from Bedford, New Hampshire. I'm a sophomore at Colby College, and I'm majoring in economics. I got involved through a couple of teammates, particularly Wallace Tucker. I was interviewed in my first semester as a part of the project, and then second semester I talked with Adam and was able to join the study and become involved in the independent study. So far, I've written stories, about 3-page short stories about students' experiences at all-boys schools. I've done school analysis, so we've looked over a lot of the elite all-boys schools and written up reports and statistics about those schools. And I've also carried out about 6 interviews as well. So we met the interviewees. Typically, it was over a FaceTime call or a phone call and recorded through voice memo. And these interviews typically took around an hour, 45 minutes each, and there was 2 sessions. So you'd have a first interview and then schedule the next one a few days in advance. And on average, I'd say my interviews were about 2 hours total, but they ranged pretty much from 2 hours to my longest one was 6 hours. Some themes that came as a surprise to me, I would say, is that allegiance to the alumni networks. I know a lot of guys had strong relationships after school with their schools, but there was one story where I heard a student who had just recently graduated college was offered a job by an employer right in the spot just due to the name of his school and his all-boys school. So this kid didn't even know the employer at all, but he was offered that job right away just because of the name of his all-boys school, which was pretty crazy to me. So my most interesting interview was definitely my 6-hour interview. It was 2 3-hour segments, and it was with a transgender student. And she definitely had a lot to talk about, and that one was a little bit longer because we incorporated some new questions about coming out and her relationships with students at her prep school, and definitely just talking about her experience with dwindling back and forth between whether she knew she was a man or a woman. And her story was definitely inspiring, and it was something that we had not seen in this research before. So she didn't come out while she was at her all-boys school. She came out about a year later, but she talked about how she actually would have felt comfortable being out at her all-boys school, which was definitely something cool for me to hear about. And definitely her experience, you would think, would be much more different than what she talked about, and you would think that someone who was going through that transition and thinking about transitioning probably would not like that all-boys environment, but she still felt that she was very close with all her teammates, and she would call them brothers to this day. So for me, going to an all-boys school for 2 years and reflecting on these interview processes, it was definitely cool to connect with guys who went to a bunch of different all-boys schools, ranging from New York City to California and Texas. And then, of course, all the all-boys schools in the Northeast. Seeing all the similarities between our all-boys schools and those lasting bonds that every guy holds near and dear to their heart. Talking about struggling together. I think struggling together was a big similarity for a lot of guys, whether that was in the classroom or athletic-wise. And then comparing that to my co-ed educational experience, I would agree with a lot of the research that we found. And I would agree that the friends that you make at all-boys schools are pretty impossible to duplicate at co-ed schools, just because that environment and being around those guys every single day, sleeping in the same room with them for 8 months and going to practice or being in the classroom every single night. So it's definitely cool to see the research that we found match up to mine and a lot of other students' experiences at all-boys schools.